What happens when one of the most powerful women in British politics, the Deputy Prime Minister herself, admits she didn't pay enough tax on her own property? What happens when the story shifts from a question of numbers to a question of integrity, public trust, and political survival? Tonight, we're talking about the shocking resignation of Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer's right-hand woman, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Housing Secretary, and the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. A woman who rose from a teenage single mom on a council estate to one of the most influential leaders in the country. And yet, in the end, it wasn't her political opponents, it wasn't an election loss, but a tax controversy, stamp duty on her second home, that forced her out. Stay with me, because this story has everything: political drama, personal sacrifice, and the haunting question of whether honesty in politics is enough when mistakes are uncovered. Angela Rayner's resignation wasn't just another political shuffle. It was a bombshell. She wasn't just a cabinet minister, she was the Deputy Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer's second-in-command. The face of Labour's working-class credibility. And yet, earlier this week, Rayner admitted she had underpaid stamp duty on a property she bought in Hove, East Sussex. At first glance, that might sound technical, even minor. But in politics, perception is everything. An unpaid tax, that's a headline no minister wants. The controversy began with media reports suggesting Angela Rayner had underpaid as much as £40,000 in stamp duty. Rayner initially said she believed, on the advice of lawyers, that she didn't owe that money. The property, she was told, couldn't be considered a second home. But as the pressure grew, the spotlight intensified. Questions mounted. And suddenly, Rayner referred herself to Sir Laurie Magnus, the independent advisor on ministerial standards. It was a bold move. One that suggested confidence or desperation. But once the inquiry began, the outcome became inevitable. Sir Laurie's findings were, in many ways, sympathetic. He praised Angela Rayner for her integrity, her commitment to public service, her dedication to her role. But he couldn't ignore the facts. She had failed to pay the correct stamp duty. And worse, this failure was only discovered after what he called intensive public scrutiny. In his words, "It is deeply regrettable that Ms. Rayner did not seek out specific tax advice initially. Her unfortunate failure has led me, with deep regret, to conclude that she has breached the ministerial code." And in British politics, breaching the code is often the end of the road. Angela Rayner's resignation letter to Sir Keir was raw, emotional, and deeply personal. She admitted the pressure on her children had become unbearable. She admitted she deeply regrets not seeking more specialist advice at the beginning. But beyond the politics, her words revealed the weight of her journey. She reminded the country that she started life as a teenage mom from a council estate in Stockport. That the honor of serving at the very top of government was something she never could have imagined back then. And she wrote, "The challenges of government are nothing compared to the challenge of putting food on the table and getting a roof over our head when I brought up kids working as a home help." Her letter wasn't just a resignation, it was a reflection. A reminder of how far she'd come, and the sacrifices along the way. Angela Rayner wasn't your typical politician. She didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. She didn't rise through elite networks. She rose through grit, determination, and the belief that politics could change lives. She credited Labour's past policies, council housing, Sure Start programs, the minimum wage, for helping her survive as a young mum. And she said she hoped her own decisions in government would one day give the same lifeline to girls growing up in council estates just like hers. That's what made her resignation sting so much for her supporters. She wasn't just a deputy prime minister. She was a symbol of what working-class ambition could achieve. For Sir Keir Starmer, this was a personal and political blow. He called Angela Rayner a trusted colleague and a true friend. He praised her achievements and expressed sadness at her departure. But make no mistake, this hurts Labour. Rayner wasn't just another minister. She was the party's deputy leader, directly elected by members. Her connection with working-class communities gave Labour an authenticity many leaders struggle to claim. Now, with her resignation, Starmer loses not just a deputy prime minister, but a vital bridge to the grassroots. So what does this mean? Is this simply a story of a politician undone by an unfortunate tax mistake? Or is it proof that no matter how powerful you become, public trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair? Angela Rayner herself said she never intended to do anything other than pay the right amount. She believed she was following the rules. But intent doesn't erase error, and in politics, errors can end careers. The fallout is just beginning. Labour will need to fill the gap left by Rayner's resignation. Questions will swirl about whether this will damage Keir Starmer's leadership as the general election approaches. And for Angela Rayner? Her career may not be over. Many believe she could make a comeback in the future. Her authenticity, her relatability, her story, those things don't disappear overnight. But for now, she steps back. A leader brought down not by scandalous corruption, not by abuse of power, but by a miscalculation in tax, and the crushing burden of political accountability. Angela Rayner's resignation is more than a headline. It's a cautionary tale. It reminds us that politics isn't just about policies and speeches. It's about trust. And once trust wavers, even the most powerful can fall. So, what do you think? Was Angela Rayner right to resign? Or should her honesty and openness have saved her job? The story of power, politics, and people is just getting started.